Have you ever watched someone defend a person when there was absolutely nothing to gain from doing it? No applause, no reward, no hidden motive, just a simple decision to speak the truth. That is the moment your soulmate never expected to witness. For so long, they carried quiet questions about your heart. They believed they had gathered enough pieces to understand who you were, even if some parts of the story never completely made sense. Whenever they thought about your choices, they unknowingly filled the missing spaces with assumptions, convincing themselves that perhaps there were things about you they would never truly understand. But everything changed in a single unexpected moment. Someone, without being asked, stood up and defended your name with complete confidence. There was no hesitation in their voice, no attempt to exaggerate your character, and no desire to influence anyone. They simply spoke the truth as they had experienced it. Those few honest words struck your soulmate more deeply than they ever imagined, because they came from someone who had no reason to protect your reputation unless everything they were saying was real. Stay with me until the very end, because what your soulmate discovers after hearing that unexpected defense completely transforms the way they remember every chapter of your connection. At first, they tried to convince themselves that it was only another opinion. But the more they reflected, the more impossible it became to dismiss what they had heard. The person defending your name described qualities that sounded remarkably familiar. They spoke about your patience when others became impatient. Your honesty when telling the truth would have been easier to avoid, and your quiet willingness to carry responsibility without asking for recognition. Those descriptions awakened memories your soulmate had almost forgotten. They remembered moments when you chose kindness, even after being misunderstood. Times when you quietly accepted blame rather than allowing unnecessary conflict to grow. And situations where your actions consistently revealed integrity, even when your words remained few. Suddenly, those forgotten memories began connecting in ways they never had before. Instead of seeing isolated moments, they began seeing a consistent pattern that had always been present beneath the surface. As these thoughts continued unfolding, an uncomfortable realization settled into their heart. They understood that doubt had never been created by what you actually did. It had been created by everything they never fully understood. They realized how easy it is for uncertainty to grow whenever important pieces of a story remain hidden. Yet the unexpected defense of your name supplied one of those missing pieces. It did not demand that your soulmate change their opinion. It simply gave them enough truth to question every assumption they had quietly accepted for years. And as they begin revisiting the past through this entirely new perspective, they are about to uncover a series of forgotten moments that will prove your character had been speaking for itself all along, even when no one else was paying attention. And now, after hearing someone unexpectedly defend your name, your soulmate finds themselves unable to move on, as if nothing happened. Those honest words continue echoing in their mind, quietly dismantling every doubt they had carried for so long. At first, they tried to convince themselves that one person's perspective could not possibly change everything. But the more they reflected, the more they realized this was different. The person who spoke up had nothing to prove and nothing to gain. They weren't trying to persuade anyone or rewrite the past. They simply shared what they had personally witnessed about your character. That sincerity made their words impossible to ignore. For the first time, your soulmate began wondering whether they had been looking at your story through an incomplete lens all along. Instead of asking whether the person defending you was right, they began asking themselves a much harder question. What if I never truly understood who they were? That single question opened a door they had kept closed for years. As they revisited old memories, something remarkable began happening. Events that once seemed confusing suddenly carried an entirely different meaning. They remembered times when you quietly stepped back from arguments instead of escalating them. At the time, they believed you simply didn't care enough to defend yourself. Now they realized that perhaps you cared too much to let anger destroy something meaningful. They remembered moments when you accepted misunderstanding rather than exposing private truths that could have embarrassed someone else. Back then, they saw silence. Today, they see restraint. They remember how you consistently treated people with respect, even when respect was not returned to you. Those memories had always existed, but they had never connected them into a larger picture. Now, after hearing someone describe your integrity with such certainty, those scattered memories begin fitting together like pieces of a puzzle that had been waiting for this very moment. What once appeared to be isolated acts of kindness now reveal a pattern that had quietly defined your character from the very beginning. The more your soulmate reflects, the more they begin noticing something they had overlooked countless times. Your actions had always remained remarkably consistent, even when circumstances changed. During easy moments, you showed kindness. During difficult moments, you still showed kindness. When people supported you, you remained humble. When people misunderstood you, you still refused to become bitter. They suddenly realized that consistency is one of the strongest signs of genuine character. Anyone can appear kind when life is comfortable, but remaining compassionate while facing disappointment reveals something much deeper. The unexpected defense of your name simply pointed toward a truth your own actions had been quietly demonstrating for years. That realization leaves your soulmate deeply moved because they understand that your reputation was never built by impressive words. It was built by countless quiet decisions that reflected who you truly were when no one expected recognition. Another realization soon follows. They remember situations where rumors, assumptions, or incomplete stories shaped the way people viewed you. At the time, they never questioned those narratives because they seemed convincing enough. But now they understand how easily people can form conclusions without ever knowing the full picture. The unexpected defender did something no one else had done before. They spoke from direct experience instead of second-hand opinions. They described the version of you they had personally witnessed, the one who remained loyal when loyalty was difficult, honest when honesty carried consequences, and compassionate even when life offered every reason to become guarded. Hearing those words forces your soulmate to admit that they may have allowed uncertainty to speak louder than evidence. Instead of judging you by the consistency of your actions, they had unknowingly judged you through the confusion created by missing information. As these truths continue unfolding, your soulmate also begins looking inward. They realize how often human beings search for dramatic proof while overlooking quiet evidence that has been present all along. They expected one grand moment that would reveal your heart, never realizing your heart had already been revealing itself through hundreds of small choices made over time. Every patient response, every honest decision, every quiet sacrifice, and every act of integrity had been telling the same story. They simply had not recognized it. Now, the unexpected defense of your name has become the final piece that allows every forgotten memory to make sense. Doubt begins giving way to admiration, confusion begins turning into clarity, and questions slowly transform into certainty. And just as your soulmate believes they have finally begun to understand who you truly are, one forgotten memory suddenly returns, a memory so powerful that it confirms everything they have just learned and reveals that your greatest acts of love were happening quietly all along, even when no one was looking. And now, your soulmate reaches the point where hearing someone defend your name is no longer enough on its own. The words they heard have awakened something far more powerful, a desire to revisit every memory they once misunderstood. They begin looking back, not through the lens of doubt, but through the lens of truth. As they do, an astonishing pattern begins to emerge. They remember moments they had once dismissed as ordinary, yet now those same moments seem to shine with a completely different meaning. They recall times when you quietly celebrated their successes without asking for attention yourself. They remember how you remained respectful even during disagreements, never allowing temporary emotions to destroy the dignity of the connection. They remember occasions when you could have easily defended yourself against unfair assumptions, yet instead chose patience over confrontation. Those moments no longer appear random. They form a picture of someone whose actions consistently reflected kindness, integrity, and emotional maturity. Your soulmate suddenly realizes that your heart had been revealing itself all along. The problem was never that the truth was hidden. The problem was that they had been searching for it in dramatic moments instead of the quiet consistency of your character. The more they reflect, the more deeply they begin to understand why the unexpected defense of your name affected them so profoundly. It wasn't because that person introduced a completely new version of you. It was because they gave words to qualities your soulmate had already witnessed but never fully appreciated. They begin remembering the countless small decisions you made that required no audience. Times when you offered support without expecting gratitude. Moments when you chose honesty, even though it placed you at a disadvantage. Situations where you quietly carried disappointment without allowing it to change the way you treated others. Those memories had always existed, but they had been overshadowed by larger questions and unresolved emotions. Now they rise to the surface with remarkable clarity. Your soulmate understands that genuine character is rarely revealed through one extraordinary event. It is revealed through ordinary moments, repeated consistently over time. That realization humbles them because they finally recognize that your greatest strengths were never designed to impress anyone. They simply reflected the person you had chosen to become. Another memory suddenly returns with surprising force. They remember a time when someone misunderstood your intentions, and instead of correcting every accusation, you allowed your actions to speak on your behalf. At the time, they questioned why you remained so calm. They wondered why you didn't fight harder to protect your reputation. Today, they finally understand. You believed that truth did not need to compete with misunderstanding forever. You trusted that genuine character would eventually become impossible to ignore. That quiet confidence once seemed confusing, but now it reveals extraordinary wisdom. Your soulmate realizes that you never measured your worth by whether everyone understood you. You measured it by remaining faithful to your values, regardless of other people's opinions. That realization changes everything because they see that your integrity was never dependent upon recognition. It existed long before anyone acknowledged it. As these thoughts continue unfolding, your soulmate begins noticing another remarkable truth. Every time life placed you in difficult situations, your response remained surprisingly consistent. You did not become harsh when disappointed. You did not become dishonest when honesty became difficult. You did not allow temporary setbacks to erase your compassion for others. Even when circumstances invited bitterness, you continued choosing kindness. Even when people misunderstood your intentions, you continued acting with quiet respect. Looking back now, they understand that this consistency could never have been accidental. It reflected a heart that had already decided what kind of person it wanted to be, regardless of how unpredictable life became. They finally recognized that your greatest victories were never public achievements. They were the invisible victories you won inside your own character every single day. Then another realization quietly settles into their heart. They understand that the unexpected person who defended your name was not trying to convince anyone of something untrue. They were simply speaking about the version of you they had personally experienced. Their words carried weight because they matched the evidence that had always been present in your life. Suddenly, your soulmate realizes that your reputation was never truly built by what people said about you. It was built by the countless lives you touched through quiet acts of sincerity, patience, and unwavering integrity. One honest voice became powerful because it reflected years of consistent actions. It confirmed what your life had already been saying long before anyone chose to speak it aloud. That realization fills your soulmate with deep admiration because they understand that authenticity can remain unnoticed for a season, but it can never remain hidden forever. Now every lingering doubt begins dissolving completely. Your soulmate no longer judges your story by isolated moments or incomplete information. They see the entire pattern that had always existed beneath the surface. Every quiet sacrifice, every patient response, every act of honesty and every decision to protect peace instead of pride now forms one undeniable truth about your heart. They realize they were never searching for proof that you were genuine. The proof had always been there. They simply needed the right perspective to recognize it. And just when they believe they have finally uncovered the complete truth about your character, one final revelation begins to unfold, a revelation that will explain why your name was misunderstood for so long and why the truth could only emerge at precisely this moment, when every missing piece was finally ready to come together. And now your soulmate begins to understand why the truth about you remained hidden for so long. It was never because your character lacked honesty or because your actions failed to reveal who you really were. The truth stayed unnoticed because people often pay more attention to loud opinions than quiet consistency. They realize that assumptions can spread quickly, while genuine character reveals itself slowly, one decision at a time. Looking back now, they see how easy it had been to believe incomplete stories, simply because those stories were spoken with confidence. Yet confidence has never been the same as truth. The unexpected person who defended your name did something few people have the courage to do. They spoke from personal experience instead of public opinion. They described the person they actually knew, not the version shaped by rumors, misunderstandings, or unanswered questions. That single act forced your soulmate to stop relying on assumptions and begin trusting what your life had consistently demonstrated all along. For the first time, they understood that your reputation had been judged by moments, while your true character had been built through years of quiet faithfulness. As they reflected more deeply, another realization settled into their heart. They remembered how often you chose to let your actions speak instead of constantly defending yourself. At the time, they questioned why you didn't correct every misunderstanding or challenge every false impression. They believed silence allowed doubt to grow. But now, they finally understand your perspective. You knew that arguing with every misunderstanding would consume your peace without changing every heart. Instead of spending your energy proving yourself to people determined not to understand, you chose to remain faithful to your values. You trusted that integrity would eventually reveal what explanations never could. That decision required remarkable patience because it meant accepting that some people would temporarily misunderstand you, yet you refused to let those misunderstandings transform your character. Your soulmate now sees that your silence was never weakness. It was confidence rooted in knowing that truth does not need to rush. It only needs time. The more they thought about it, the more they realized that the unexpected defense of your name could only happen because your character had already prepared the foundation for it. The person who spoke up did not invent new evidence. They simply gave voice to what they had personally witnessed over time. They remembered your consistency when circumstances became difficult. They remembered your honesty when telling the truth came with consequences. They remembered your kindness toward people who could offer you nothing in return. Those memories became impossible to dismiss because they reflected a pattern rather than a single event. Your soulmate suddenly recognized that one honest testimony carried such extraordinary weight because it was supported by countless quiet moments no one had paid enough attention to before. Authenticity always leaves evidence, even when it remains unnoticed for a season. Eventually, someone who has experienced that authenticity will speak, and when they do, their words carry a credibility that assumptions can never match. Another profound truth begins unfolding within them. They realize that this revelation is changing more than the way they see you. It is changing the way they understand people altogether. They now recognize how dangerous it can be to form permanent conclusions from temporary misunderstandings. They understand that every person carries unseen chapters, silent sacrifices, and private decisions that others rarely know about. Your story has become a powerful reminder that appearances rarely reveal the complete truth. The qualities that matter most, integrity, loyalty, compassion, humility, often develop quietly without demanding recognition. Looking back now, they regret the moments when they allowed uncertainty to speak louder than evidence. But instead of remaining trapped in that regret, they choose gratitude because life has finally given them the opportunity to see your heart clearly. They understand that discovering the truth later is infinitely better than never discovering it at all. Now your soulmate no longer remembers your name through the confusion of incomplete stories or unanswered questions. They remember it through the consistency of your actions, the quiet strength of your character, and the integrity that remained unchanged regardless of circumstances. Every lingering doubt has been replaced with deep respect. Every misunderstanding has given way to clarity. Every forgotten memory now supports the same undeniable truth that one unexpected voice courageously revealed. And just as they believe this extraordinary journey has reached its conclusion, one final realization begins to take shape. They are about to understand that the greatest gift was never hearing someone defend your name. It was discovering that your own life had been quietly defending your character all along, patiently waiting for the day when the truth could no longer be ignored. As your soulmate reaches the end of this remarkable journey, they realize that the unexpected defense of your name did far more than change their opinion. It completely transformed the way they understand your heart. For years, they believed doubt existed because there were too many unanswered questions. They assumed that if your character had truly been as genuine as they hoped, someone would have spoken sooner, or the truth would have revealed itself more clearly. But now they understand that genuine character rarely demands attention. It quietly reveals itself through consistent actions, patient choices, and unwavering integrity. The person who unexpectedly defended your name did not create a new version of you. They simply uncovered the version that had always existed beneath every misunderstanding. That realization leaves your soulmate deeply moved because they finally understand that the truth about you was never absent. It was simply waiting for someone courageous enough to recognize it and honest enough to speak it aloud. Suddenly, every doubt they once carried loses its strength, replaced by a quiet certainty that feels impossible to ignore. Looking back now, your soulmate begins remembering countless moments they had overlooked for years. They remember the times when you chose kindness instead of revenge, even when people gave you every reason to become bitter. They remember how you remained respectful during difficult conversations, while others allowed emotions to control their words. They remember how you consistently acted according to your values, regardless of whether anyone acknowledged your efforts. At the time, those moments seemed ordinary, because true integrity often appears quiet. But now they recognize that those ordinary moments were extraordinary precisely because they happened without any expectation of praise or recognition. Your character was never something you performed when people were watching. It was something you carried with you every single day, even in moments when no one else noticed. That realization fills your soulmate with admiration because they understand that authenticity cannot be manufactured. It is revealed through the quiet consistency of a life lived according to principles rather than opinions. Another powerful truth begins settling deeply within their heart. They realize that the unexpected person who defended your name was never trying to convince anyone to believe something impossible. They were simply describing what they had personally experienced. Their words carried such extraordinary weight because they matched the evidence your life had already provided. Every act of honesty, every quiet sacrifice, every patient response, and every compassionate decision had become invisible testimony long before anyone finally spoke about it. Your soulmate understands now that genuine character always leaves traces behind. Even when people misunderstand your intentions, your actions continue planting seeds of truth in the lives of those who experience your kindness firsthand. Eventually, someone remembers. Eventually, someone speaks. Eventually, someone stands up and says, "That is not the person I know." And when that moment arrives, it carries a power that no rumor, assumption, or misunderstanding can permanently overcome. The truth may arrive quietly, but once it arrives, it changes everything. As they continue reflecting, your soulmate also realizes how much this experience has changed them personally. They no longer want to judge people by isolated moments or incomplete stories. They have learned that every life contains chapters hidden from public view, struggles that remain invisible, and decisions shaped by circumstances no outsider fully understands. Your journey has taught them that the loudest voices are not always the most truthful, and the quietest hearts often carry the deepest integrity. They understand now that wisdom requires patience, because rushing to conclusions often means walking away from truths that simply have not revealed themselves yet. This realization fills them with both humility and gratitude. Humility because they recognize how easily assumptions can cloud even sincere intentions. Gratitude because life has given them the opportunity to correct those assumptions before they became permanent. They now see your story not as one defined by misunderstanding, but as one marked by remarkable consistency, quiet courage, and unwavering character. Now your soulmate no longer remembers your name through uncertainty or unanswered questions. They remember it through every quiet act of compassion, every moment of honesty, every decision rooted in integrity, and every sacrifice made without expecting recognition. The unexpected defense of your name became the spark that illuminated a truth your life had been demonstrating all along. It was never one person's words that proved who you were. Their words simply pointed toward the evidence that had always existed within your actions. Every memory now carries a different light. Every doubt has been replaced by respect. Every misunderstanding has been transformed into admiration. And perhaps that is the greatest revelation of all. A person's reputation can be questioned for a season, misunderstood for a time, or even challenged by circumstances. But genuine character possesses a quiet strength that never disappears. It patiently waits for truth to catch up with perception. Now that your soulmate has finally seen your heart with complete clarity, they understand that the greatest defense of your name was never spoken in one unexpected conversation. It was written through the countless choices you made every single day, faithfully reflecting the person you had always been, until the truth became too powerful for anyone to doubt ever again.